I was 22 the day my parents decided I was no longer worth the space I took up in their house. Cedar Grove, Iowa was already a small enough town to suffocate a person, but nothing felt smaller than my mother's voice when she tossed a crumpled $50 bill onto the kitchen table and said, "This is all the help you'll ever get from us, Natalie. Take it or leave." I stood there frozen, like my brain needed time to understand that she meant it. My father didn't even look up from his coffee. He just muttered, "You've been a burden long enough." My sister Sophia leaned against the counter with her perfect blonde hair and perfect life and perfect everything, watching me with an expression that wasn't quite pity, more like relief that it wasn't her being thrown out. "Are you serious?" I finally managed to say, my voice tight. "You're kicking me out. For what? For existing wrong." Mom crossed her arms. "For failing to be anything. For draining this family. For not turning out like your sister." Sophia looked away, but she didn't say a word. She didn't have to. She knew her place in this family. I knew mine. I packed my duffel bag in silence. 1 pair of jeans, 2 shirts, a toothbrush, my old phone with a cracked screen. Dad stood in the doorway of the bedroom I had lived in for 22 years and didn't offer to help. He just said, "The bus leaves at 5. Don't miss it." I didn't cry until I reached the bus station. By the time I climbed onto that Greyhound headed towards Savannah, Georgia, a place I'd never even been but chose, because it was the farthest ticket $50 could buy, I felt hollowed out. Like someone had scooped out everything soft inside me and left only the dry shell. My first home in Savannah was a tiny room above a garage behind an elderly couple's house. The air smelled like motor oil and mildew. The metal folding bed squeaked every time I breathed the mattress, thin enough to feel every spring. I didn't complain. I was too grateful to have 4 walls. I took the first job that would hire me, the night shift at the downtown bus terminal. Sorting lost luggage, directing confused travelers, mopping up spills at 2 in the morning. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me alive. And as the weeks rolled on, I began noticing patterns where lines clogged, where schedules didn't match, where people moved one way when the system expected them to move another. I started taking notes during breaks, then charts, then mapping out the entire flow of the terminal until I could predict where a delay would happen 10 minutes before anyone else saw it coming. One night, my supervisor Rick saw my notebook. "What's all this?" he asked, flipping through the pages. "Just ideas," I said, "ways the terminal could run smoother." He snorted. "You're not paid to think, just do your job." Then he tossed the notebook into the lost and found bin. I retrieved it after he left. When a position opened at Turnpike Logistics, a massive warehouse operation on the outskirts of the city, I applied immediately. They hired me on the spot. The work was heavier, the hours longer, but the chaos fascinated me. I watched how people moved where boxes got stuck, how data failed to match reality. And without telling anyone, I rewrote spreadsheets, built macros, color-coded inventory paths, until everything ran smoother than it ever had. My manager, a man who loved taking credit for other people's work, noticed only when things started improving. "Great job, team," he'd say every time upper management praised our numbers. Team. As if he had lifted a single finger. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't there for approval. I was building something inside myself, discipline, instincts, the ability to stand on my own legs. Then everything changed with a single phone call. It was a Tuesday evening in late October. I was sitting at my tiny kitchen table, eating dollar store ramen, when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number from Tybee Island, Georgia. I almost ignored it. "Hello," I answered reluctantly. A deep, warm voice replied, "Natalie Harper." "Yes." "Who's calling?" "This is William Harper, your grandfather." I nearly dropped the phone. My family had always said he was unstable, impossible, someone who wanted nothing to do with us. I had never met him. "I've been trying to reach you for a long time," he said. "I need to see you. It's important." "Why me?" I whispered. Because he said softly, "You're the only one left who hasn't forgotten how to be good." I didn't know it then, but that one phone call would rip open every secret my family had spent decades burying and turn my life into a battlefield I never asked for. When I arrived on Tybee Island the next weekend, the air tasted like salt and late autumn wind. I had never been to a place that felt both lonely and breathtaking at the same time. My grandfather's house sat at the very end of a quiet road, half hidden by live oaks and Spanish moss, like it was purposely staying out of sight. William Harper opened the door before I even knocked. "You look just like your grandmother," he murmured, studying my face the way a person studies a memory they're afraid of losing. "Come in, Natalie. We don't have time to waste." Inside the house smelled like cedar and old books. He walked slowly, leaning on a cane, but every movement carried a quiet authority, like he was a man who had spent his whole life being misunderstood, but never broken. We sat in his sunroom overlooking the ocean. Waves crashed against the rocks below, steady and cold. William placed a small wooden box on the table between us. "I need you to listen," he said, his voice low. "Everything I'm about to give you will make sense one day, even if it doesn't right now." He opened the box and took out a brass key. The metal was worn, but heavy, almost ceremonial. "This," he said, placing it in my palm, "is the key to my villa on the south side of the island. It's old, it needs love, but it's yours now. No conditions, no strings." My throat went tight. "Why me? We've never even met." William's eyes softened. "Because you're the only one in this family who's managed to stay kind despite everything they tried to crush in you. I've watched from a distance, more closely than you think." He reached back into the box and pulled out something far stranger, a red, wax-sealed envelope with my name written in an elegant hand. "You cannot open this until Thanksgiving," he instructed. "And only in the presence of my attorney. Do you understand?" "Yes," I said, though confusion stirred uneasily inside me. He hesitated, then added the line that lodged itself into my brain like a shadow. "And Natalie, don't change the locks. Whatever happens, don't. Let them reveal themselves. Them." I knew who he meant, but hearing him say it aloud made the air feel colder. When I tried to ask more, he gently shook his head. "Some truths have to unfold on their own. Don't rush them." I left the island with the key clenched tightly in my hand. The villa looked like it belonged in a forgotten chapter of history: stone arches, weathered shutters, and a view of the Atlantic so wide it made you feel both tiny and infinite. It needed work, a lot of work. But the moment I stepped inside, something in my chest opened like a space I hadn't realized was locked, finally had air. I scrubbed floors, patched walls, repainted cabinets. Every day after my warehouse shifts, I drove back to Tybee, rolled up my sleeves, and rebuilt the house piece by piece. The smell of ocean and sawdust mixed into something strangely comforting. Somewhere in the middle of sanding a window frame, an idea hit me. If I could fix the chaos of bus terminals and warehouse operations without anyone asking, why couldn't I do it professionally? I started drafting a business plan on the kitchen counter. Horizon Flow, a consultancy focused on optimizing systems not just with data, but with an understanding of how people moved, worked, and broke under pressure. Within 3 months, Horizon Flow had 4 small business clients, then 8. Then a regional manufacturer hired me to reorganize their workflow. My phone buzzed constantly. My name started floating around local business circles. Success felt surreal, quietly earned, undeniable. But it also made my social media accounts explode, something I didn't think twice about until the messages started coming in from Iowa. Then my sister called. "Natalie, Mom and Dad saw your posts," she whispered. "They know about the house." My stomach sank. "They've been asking questions," she continued. "A lot of questions." I could almost hear my mother's sharp inhale, the calculation behind it. The greed, the entitlement. Sophia added softly, "Just be careful." I ended the call and stared at the villa walls. A chill ran across my skin. For the first time, I understood exactly why my grandfather said, "Don't change the locks." He hadn't given me a warning. He had given me time. Time before everything I built and everything he left me would be tested by the very people who once told me I had no value at all. I should have known the peace wouldn't last. It was a warm, windy afternoon when I pulled into the villa driveway and saw the blue sedan with Iowa plates parked crookedly near the porch. My stomach dropped before I even stepped out of the car. And then the front door opened. My mother walked out first, hair perfectly curled, expression rehearsed. My father followed, hands in his pockets as if he owned the place. The sight of them standing on my porch made something sharp twist inside me. "Natalie," Mom called, spreading her arms like we were long-lost friends. "Honey, we just wanted to talk." I didn't move any closer. "How did you even find this address?" "We're your parents," she said with a soft laugh. "Of course we'd find you." Dad cleared his throat. "Let's not make this dramatic. We drove all the way from Cedar Grove to make things right." "As a family." "Family," I echoed. "You kicked me out with $50 and told me I was worthless, remember?" Mom's smile tightened. "We were hurt. You were impossible. But this," she gestured to the villa behind me, "this house belongs to the Harper family, and we think it's only fair you give us a key." I blinked slowly. A key. To my house. Our house, Dad corrected, stepping forward. This is a family asset. You don't get to hog it. Hog it. Like the villa was a toy I refused to share. I stood my ground. Grandpa gave it to me. Mom scoffed lightly, as if I were a child telling fairy tales. Sweetheart William was confused. You know how old people get. He didn't mean for you to take this literally. He was perfectly lucid, I said, and I'm not giving you anything. That's when something cold snapped behind her eyes. The friendliness vanished like a mask slipping off. Well, Mom said slowly, if you won't cooperate, then we'll just have to explain everything online. People deserve to know what you've done. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. What is that supposed to mean? You pressured an elderly man for property, she said matter-of-factly. You manipulated him, took advantage. There are words for that, Natalie. You're unbelievable, I whispered. Dad shrugged, like this was all perfectly reasonable. You want to play hard, fine, but don't be surprised when people start seeing you for what you are. They left without another word, slamming their car doors hard enough to echo down the street. By that evening, my phone was blowing up. Fake posts, twisted stories, comments from strangers calling me greedy, abusive, unstable. One video claimed I had isolation tendencies and paranoid episodes. Another implied I forged documents to trick my grandfather. Every lie came from accounts linked back to my mother. While I was still trying to keep myself from shaking, another blow landed. Emails from clients, questions, concerns, a few cancellations. Then a message from someone named Paxton Hale. He introduced himself as an investor who was worried about Horizon Flow's future and offered to step in by acquiring my client data before things got worse. I stared at the email, heart-hammering. He wasn't worried. He wanted the collapse. He wanted to profit from the smear campaign my parents had started. Within 48 hours, it felt like the ground under my feet had split open. But Thanksgiving was approaching, which meant the red wax-sealed envelope, Grandpa's final instruction, was waiting. I asked his attorney, Mr. Lanning, to meet me at the villa. The day of Thanksgiving, the sky was overcast, wind pressing against the old windows like it wanted to listen in. We sat at the dining table. My hands shook when I reached for the envelope. You ready? Mr. Lanning asked gently. No, I admitted. But let's do it. The wax broke cleanly. Inside was a formal document, signed, dated, notarized. My grandfather had left me everything. The villa, the land, the rights. It was all explicitly, legally mine. But there was more. A clause written in clear, deliberate language. Any attempt by Linda Harper, or anyone acting on her behalf, to change the locks, enter the property without permission, or claim ownership in any form, would trigger a mandatory civil penalty of $150,000 withdrawn directly from her personal account and transferred to the William Harper Foundation to support trade school scholarships. I felt my breath leave my body. He knew. He predicted every move. He had written a weapon disguised as a warning. Mr. Lanning looked up at me. He wasn't confused, Natalie. He was protecting you. Outside, the wind howled against the shutters, like the island itself was exhaling the truth. In that moment, I understood why Grandpa told me not to change the locks. He didn't want me to stop them. He wanted them to reveal themselves. First-person, dramatic, emotionally intense, American English. I thought I'd at least have a day to breathe after opening the envelope. I was wrong. At 6:12 the next morning, my phone buzzed with a motion notification from the villa's front porch camera. Half awake, I tapped it open and nearly shot upright in bed. There he was, my father, standing on my porch with a locksmith. The man knelt in front of the doorknob tools, clicking softly. My father kept glancing around like a burglar, afraid of his own shadow. He whispered something I could barely hear through the speaker. Just get it done. She won't be here for another hour. My skin went cold. He was really doing it. He was actually replacing the locks. The exact violation my grandfather had predicted, word for word. I watched heart hammering as the locksmith snapped the old lock out of place. A final metallic clank echoed through the audio feed. The moment it clicked, my phone lit up with an email notification. Automatic notice covenant. Clause activation. Violation detected. Initiating account withdrawal, $150,000. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Grandpa's legal mechanism had been triggered instantly. Quiet, clean, unquestionable. By noon, all hell had broken loose. Linda called me 13 times. 4 voicemails. Each one angrier than the last. How dare you steal from us? You tricked your own grandfather. You'll regret crossing this family. You think you can embarrass us publicly. Watch what happens next. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every part of me felt shaky and unreal, like I was watching someone else's nightmare unfold. Within hours, new posts flooded Facebook and TikTok, my mother claiming I hacked their bank account, that I faked legal papers, that Grandpa never had the mental capacity to sign anything. But unlike before this time, the internet didn't fall for it, because I had proof. I uploaded the porch footage. Clear as day, my father was on camera, hiring a locksmith, literally instructing him to break in. The comment sections flipped instantly. "Why are you trying to change your daughter's locks? Looks like you are the one stealing, not her. The entitlement is unreal. This girl needs a restraining order." For the first time in my life, strangers saw what I had lived with for years, and they believed me. But the biggest shift didn't come from the internet. It came from something I found while trying to clear my head. I spent that evening cleaning Grandpa's old bedroom, needing anything to ground myself. I was kneeling near the dresser when my hand brushed across a faint seam in the floorboard. A square outline. Almost invisible. I pressed down. The board clicked upward. My breath caught. Underneath was a small, dust-covered safe bolted into the foundation. The combination lock was old, but intact. I hesitated a moment before trying the date engraved inside Grandpa's watch, his anniversary. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of worn notebooks, a USB drive, and a leather-bound journal tied with twine. My hands shook as I flipped the first page. It was my mother's handwriting. But it wasn't a letter, it was documentation, plans, dates, notes, years' worth of attempts to seize control of Grandpa's finances. Photocopies of medical forms she tried to alter. A typed proposal petitioning for full authority over his estate. Legal drafts for asset consolidation. She had been scheming for decades. Then I reached a page with a photograph clipped to it, Grandpa sitting on the sunroom couch, looking exhausted. Underneath was a transcript of a conversation. Linda's voice filled the room as I played the attached video from the USB. "That house should have been mine. Natalie is just a system glitch. A mistake." My throat tightened. My mother had called me many things over the years, but hearing her say it like that, so casually cruel, so intentional, it felt like a knife buried under my ribs. I finished the rest of the files in silence. Every page was a confession she never intended anyone to find. Every paragraph a blueprint of manipulation. Grandpa knew. He must have known for years. And he hid all of this not to punish her, but to protect me. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse with a folder full of evidence. No shaking, no second guessing, no apologizing for existing the wrong way. When I placed the journal, the forms, and the video recording on the clerk's desk, I felt the first breath of freedom I'd had in years. "My name is Natalie Harper," I said. "I need to submit evidence in an ongoing case." For once, the truth was louder than her lies. The day of the hearing felt colder than it should have. Georgia autumn isn't harsh, but that morning, the air outside the courthouse stung like winter had arrived early, just to watch what happened next. As I walked through the courtroom doors, my palms were damp. I wasn't afraid of losing anything I already knew. The truth was on my side. What rattled me was realizing how much of my childhood I had spent believing I was the problem. And now, finally, a room full of strangers would see who the real problem had always been. Linda and Mark sat at the opposite table. Mom wore a blazer too expensive for someone claiming financial victimhood. Dad avoided looking at me entirely, staring down at his folded hands like the grain of the wood could save him. The judge entered. Everyone stood. As soon as the proceedings began, the tension thickened. Mr. Lanning, my grandfather's attorney, laid out the medical reports showing William's cognitive clarity. He showed video clips including some I hadn't seen recordings of the two of them talking just months before he died. Grandpa spoke clearly, sharply, decisively. No confusion, no hesitation. Then came the hardest part, the evidence from the floor safe. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the video of my mother's confession played. Her voice filled the speakers. "That house should have been mine. Natalie is just a system glitch." Mom's eyes widened. Her jaw tightened so hard I thought she might crack a tooth. Dad let out a quiet exhale, shoulders sinking, as though he'd finally realized there was no way out. The judge paused the video and looked directly at Linda. "Mrs. Harper, do you deny this is your voice?" Silence stretched. Linda swallowed, lifted her chin, and said I was venting. "People say things they don't mean." The judge leaned back slowly. "For 20 years, in detailed written plans, in multiple documents, attempting to seize control of your father's finances." The room went still. Then the judge addressed the issue of the lock replacement. Mark tried to defend himself, claiming ignorance, saying he didn't understand the legal implications. But the porch camera footage made it impossible to twist the truth. The locksmith's voice was crystal clear. "You sure you got permission to do this?" Sir Dad's answer. "Just change it before she gets back," echoed through the courtroom, like a hammer hitting metal. When the judge announced the ruling, I felt something inside me unclench, like a long-held breath, finally releasing after years of pressure. The court finds William Harper fully competent at the time of the estate transfer. The villa is lawfully and solely the property of Ms. Natalie Harper. Additionally, due to evidence of elder financial exploitation and unlawful attempts to seize assets, Linda and Mark Harper are prohibited from contacting or approaching Ms. Harper or entering the property at any time. Linda gasped. Dad's shoulders sagged. The judge continued. "A restraining order will be issued immediately." My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the shock of hearing the system finally acknowledge what I had lived through for years. As the courtroom emptied, Mom shot me one final look, something between rage and disbelief, like she couldn't comprehend that her version of the world had collapsed. But that wasn't the moment that shook me the most. It happened later when I stepped outside and saw Sophia standing alone near the steps, gripping the strap of her purse like she didn't know what to do with her hands. She walked toward me cautiously, like approaching a wounded animal. "Nat," her voice cracked. I'm so sorry." I didn't answer right away. My body was still coiled from everything that had happened. Sophia's eyes brimmed with guilt. "They forced me to sign those letters," she said, voice trembling. "Mom said if I didn't help, I'd lose the promotion. And then when the truth came out, they fired me anyway." I exhaled slowly. "I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt Sophia." I know she whispered, "But I want to fix it. I want to start over. Please, let me earn that chance." For a moment, her face flickered with the little sister I used to share a room with, the one who whispered secrets under blankets before life got complicated. I didn't hug her. I didn't forgive her with some dramatic embrace. But I did something else. "There's an opening at Horizon Flow," I said quietly. "Entry level. No special treatment. No shortcuts. You apply like everyone else. You work like everyone else. If you're serious, you start from zero." Sophia nodded fiercely, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I want that. I want to earn it." For the first time in years, I believed her. As she walked away, the wind swept across the courthouse steps, carrying something almost impossible to name, closure maybe, or the beginning of something that could someday become forgiveness. But it would be built, not given. 1 year later, Thanksgiving morning on Tybee Island looked nothing like the Thanksgivings of my childhood. Back then, it was all noise, my mother shouting directions, my father pretending to help Sophia and I, trying to stay out of the way, while resentment simmered under every polite word. But this Thanksgiving was quiet. The sky was soft gray, the ocean slow and steady, and my villa, my home, felt fuller than it had ever been, not because of people, but because of the peace inside it. I had spent the last year rebuilding not just the house, not just the company, but myself. Some days were still hard, but every part of my life now belonged to me. That morning, I drove to the community center in Savannah for the final meeting, the one that would close the legal loop around my parents for good. The conference room was small, warm, and smelled faintly of pumpkin muffins somebody had left on a corner table. Sophia was already there, reviewing volunteer schedules on her tablet. A year of working at the Harper Foundation kitchen had changed her, her shoulders straighter, her voice steadier, her confidence rooted in work she earned rather than inherited. "You ready?" she asked me gently. "As ready as I can be." The door opened behind us. Linda stepped in first. For the first time in my life, my mother didn't look untouchable. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled. Her makeup was faded at the edges, as if even her reflection had grown tired of pretending. Mark hovered behind her, smaller somehow, like time had chipped away the sharpness he used to weaponize. Their lawyer placed a stack of documents on the table, but the real weight of the room wasn't legal. It was emotional, thick and uncomfortable. Linda took a breath. "Natalie? I want a chance to fix this family." I didn't answer right away, because what she wanted wasn't something she could demand, bargain for, or manipulate into existence. It was something she'd have to rebuild action by action, hour by hour. I reached into my bag and placed 2 objects on the table. The first, a brass villa key. Old, heavy, symbolic. The second, a plain steel key with a yellow plastic tag. The key to the food pantry where Sophia now served as manager. Linda frowned slightly. What is this? This, I said, tapping the brass key, is what you wanted to steal. And this, I tapped the steel one, is what you'll have to earn. Mark shifted. We don't understand. That's exactly the problem, I said quietly. You spent years trying to take. You're only getting this chance if you finally learn how to give. Sophia swallowed, but she didn't look away when I continued. The restraining order can be softened, not erased, if, and only if, you complete 300 hours of community labor under Sophia's supervision, without complaint, without shortcuts, without lies. And you sign away every possible claim to the villa permanently. Mom stared at the keys, lips trembling. For a moment, I couldn't tell if she would explode again or collapse. Then something in her face cracked, not rage this time, not entitlement, but something closer to surrender. If that's what it takes, she whispered, I'll do it. Mark nodded with a stiffness that came from having no other option left. The paperwork was signed in silence. As their signatures dried, the air shifted like a storm that had hovered for years, was finally blowing past us, leaving the room strangely still. They left without another dramatic farewell. No hugs, no tears, just a quiet understanding that the family we once had was gone, and whatever could be rebuilt would come slowly, honestly, and without the illusions that had poisoned us before. When the door closed behind them, Sophia exhaled shakily. You did the right thing, she said, even if it was hard. I nodded. I know, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. That night, back at the villa, I went into the guest room, the very first room I ever slept in here. The folding metal bed had been shoved into the corner, unused for months. I placed my hand on it and remembered the hollow loneliness of that first night in Georgia, the lurch of fear, the feeling of having nothing and no one. I clicked the bed frame once. The sound rang out soft final. Then I folded it for the last time. One clean motion, one quiet metallic closure. It felt like sealing a chapter of my life that had been open for far too long. I carried the folded bed out to the porch and set it next to the donation pile. The ocean breeze was cool, not cold. The sky above Tybee Island glowed with the last traces of orange and pink as the sun sank toward the horizon. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. For the first time, my life was mine and peaceful. And that peace was louder than any chaos they had ever brought into my world. If you listened to this story from beginning to end, tell me, did it move you? Should I keep creating more stories like this? And what kind of themes do you want to hear next? Let me know if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next stories other women have shared.